June 6, 1944. This is a date that changed the world forever. Imagine the sun rising over Normandy, France. But it wasn't a peaceful morning. No, this was D-Day. Thousands of ships filled the water, carrying brave soldiers, sailors and airmen. They were about to face a dangerous enemy, the Nazis. The soldiers knew this could be their last day, but they were fighting for something bigger than themselves. They were fighting for freedom. These were ordinary people doing extraordinary things. Their courage and bravery helped free Europe from tyranny. Their stories deserve to be remembered. D-Day was a turning point in World War II. It showed the world that even against incredible odds, people can fight for what's right. This video is about that day, the planning, the bravery, and the lasting impact of D-Day. To understand how important D-Day was, we need to go back a few years. By 1944, the world was at war for 5 long years. A dangerous leader named Adolf Hitler and his Nazi army were conquering Europe, hurting many people. The good news? Countries like Great Britain, the United States and the Soviet Union teamed up to stop him. They were called the Allies. The whole world watched as these forces of good fought against the forces of evil. The Allies knew they had to free Western Europe from Nazi control. A successful invasion would give them a fighting chance to win the war, but it was a very risky plan. The leaders of the Allied forces had a huge weight on their shoulders. They knew that the success or failure of this mission would change the world forever. The plan for D-Day, called Operation Overlord, was created in secret meetings in London. A smart leader named General Dwight D. Eisenhower was in charge. He and his team had to figure out how to launch the biggest invasion by sea in history. They planned every detail, from where to land to when to attack. They chose the beaches of Normandy because the Nazi defenses were weaker there. But even with a good plan, it was still going to be incredibly difficult. First, the soldiers had to cross the rough English Channel, which was known for its dangerous waters. Then, they had to fight their way onto beaches protected by enemy bunkers, machine guns, and hidden bombs. Their only hope was to surprise the enemy and keep moving forward no matter what. Getting ready for this invasion was a huge task. They needed ships, tanks, planes, weapons, and enough food and supplies for all the soldiers. It was a massive effort. While the Allies were planning the invasion, they also came up with a clever trick. They called it Operation Fortitude, and it was designed to fool the enemy. The goal was to make the Nazis think the attack was going to happen at a place called Pas-de-Calais, not Normandy. They used inflatable tanks, fake radio messages, and even double agents to make the Germans believe their lies. And it worked. The Germans were completely fooled. The Allies knew that surprise was their biggest advantage. They kept the true date and location of the invasion top secret. Even the soldiers going into battle didn't know until the very last minute. Even the best German general, a man named Erwin Rommel, believed the lies. He sent most of his troops to protect Calais, leaving Normandy less defended. This mistake would cost the Nazis dearly. In the early hours of June 6, 1944, Operation Overlord began. Thousands of paratroopers, special soldiers trained to jump out of airplanes, prepared for a dangerous mission. They were from the US 82nd and 101st Airborne Divisions. Their job was to land behind enemy lines before the main attack and cause chaos. The sky above Normandy was filled with the roar of planes carrying these brave men. They were loaded down with weapons and equipment, their faces serious, knowing this could be their last mission. Landing safely was difficult. Many planes had to fly through fog and smoke, making it hard to see. Some paratroopers landed far from where they were supposed to, surrounded by the enemy. They had to fight their way to their targets. Despite the danger and many losses, these brave soldiers disrupted the German defenses and slowed their response to the beach landings. As the sun began to rise, a massive fleet of ships approached the beaches of Normandy. The sheer number of ships was incredible, showing the strength of the Allied forces. Battleships fired their big guns at the German defenses, while fighter planes attacked from the air. The Normandy coastline was divided into 5 beaches: Utah, Omaha, Gold, Juno, and Sword. Each beach had its own dangers, but none were as terrifying as Omaha Beach. This is where American soldiers faced a living nightmare. As the first American troops landed on Omaha Beach, the Germans unleashed a hailstorm of bullets and explosions. The beach was littered with mines and obstacles, making it a death trap. Many brave men were killed before they even made it off the beach. For a while it seemed like the invasion would fail. Radios weren't working, groups of soldiers were separated, and the Germans were winning. But even in this chaos, incredible acts of bravery began to happen. Small groups of soldiers refused to give up. They risked their lives to help their friends and found ways to fight back against the Germans. They climbed cliffs, took out machine gun nests, and cleared paths for more soldiers to land. Their courage, against all odds, turned the tide of the battle. While Omaha Beach was a scene of intense fighting, the landings on the other beaches were also challenging. On Utah Beach, American troops met less resistance than expected and quickly took control. British and Canadian forces landed on Gold, Juno, and Sword beaches, facing fierce fighting but eventually pushing through. Tanks arrived on the beaches, providing much-needed firepower. Special engineers worked quickly to clear paths for more soldiers and vehicles. As the hours passed, the Allies gained more and more control. More soldiers arrived, and they pushed further inland. The German soldiers fought hard, but they were outnumbered and outgunned. The success of the D-Day landings was a turning point in World War II. The Allies were now in Europe, and this paved the way for the liberation of France and the eventual defeat of Nazi Germany. But this victory came at a high price. The beautiful beaches of Normandy were turned into a scene of terrible destruction. The cost of D-Day was measured in human lives. Over 10,000 Allied soldiers were killed, wounded, or went missing. The beaches were covered with the bodies of fallen soldiers. Medics worked tirelessly to save the wounded, their uniforms stained with blood. The air was filled with the smells of gunpowder, seawater, and death. The impact of D-Day was felt far beyond those beaches. Families on both sides of the Atlantic Ocean lost loved ones. The war left a lasting scar of pain and suffering. D-Day is a story about the incredible strength of people who fight for what's right. It was a victory earned through bravery, sacrifice, and determination. The legacy of D-Day continues to inspire us, reminding us of the terrible cost of war and how precious freedom is. Today, the beaches of Normandy are peaceful. Memorials and cemeteries honor the memory of those who gave their lives. D-Day wasn't just a military victory, it was a victory for the human spirit. It showed that countries can work together to defeat evil, and that even in the darkest of times, hope can prevail. The legacy of D-Day is a reminder that freedom is something we must always protect. It's a fight that continues today, and it requires us to be brave, vigilant, and unwavering in our pursuit of a better world.